Today we're at Logan Chiropractic College in St. Louis, Missouri to interview Inge Yochum, wife of Dr. Terry Yochum. We're going to find out some interesting things about Inge's past life before and during Terry.
Yeah.
So with that, remember Inge, it's just a conversation. There's nothing to be afraid of, nothing to be embarrassed about. So
Okay.
we'll start with an easy one.
hmm
Where and when were you born?
I was born in Germany, more specific, in Sigmaringen, and that was on the 30th of November, 1947.
All right. What part of Germany is that in?
It's the southern part of Germany, southwestern, kind of in the corner where the Black Forest is.
Okay. And what was your childhood like?
Well, I was born right after the war, so there was a lot of poverty, and my parents were not excluded from that. They were very poor. And so what I remember of it was a happy childhood, but my parents got a lot of help from their respective parents because they were farmers, and so food was available through them. But my dad was, I think he was making 50 cents a week.
Oh my.
He was a runner for the hospital. He did some just I don't know, what do you call it?
Like a messenger
A
type
messenger,
thing?
yeah.
Okay.
hmm
Did your mom work?
My mom did not work outside the home, but I remember she would. This is going to sound really crazy, but she would repair nylons. When people got runners in their stockings, she would repair the runners.
That makes sense at that time. That
Yeah.
would be kind of
Yeah.
hard to come by, wouldn't it?
And she also, and I remember helping her with that, she would sort pearl buttons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the mother of pearl buttons?
Sure.
Because they were sometimes not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And she would sort them out and put them in different categories of worth, I guess. And she did that in the home, so she
Interesting.
was home with us kids.
Do you have brothers or sisters?
I have a younger sister and a younger brother. I was the oldest.
Okay. And how big was your town that you were born in?
That was actually a pretty big town. Probably 15,000 people at the time.
Okay.
So that was considered a Stadt, a city.
A Stadt, yes. Did you move to a smaller town then, or?
Yeah, my dad got transferred. He then, after he worked for the hospital, he started working for the railroad.
Okay.
There was a private railroad that was running to small villages, and he actually was a station master in the city, in Sigmaringen, and then got transferred to a smaller village. It was a village, and that's where I then spent the rest of my childhood, in Jungingen.
Okay. How do you think your experiences and your home life in Germany helped shape you as a person?
Well, because my parents were poor, I mean, even up until the time that I left Germany, we never had a TV. So
I see.
things were, we went on vacation once that I can remember, once during all my childhood. We took a trip together. So, it gives you an appreciation of things.
Mm-hmm.
When you didn't have them and then they come in your life, you really appreciate it.
Okay. When and why did you come to the United States?
Well, I had a great aunt. She was actually my grandfather's sister. She immigrated to the United States, and she would come back every 5 years. And when I was about 4 or 5, she was there, and it was right after the war, and she saw that, my parents were struggling, and she always wanted to take me with her to raise me in the United States. So my parents, of course, would never agree to it.
Right.
But every 5 years she tried, and then the last time she was there before I actually came, I was 15. And she didn't talk to my parents anymore. She was talking to me.
I see.
She was trying to convince me that, I should come to the United States to be with her. Now, her daughter at the time had grown up and married, and so she was alone. So she was looking for somebody to
little
keep her
companionship
company.
for her.
Right, right. And I was listening because I was 1 year from graduating the school that I was attending, and I actually wanted to become a teacher in home economics. I was accepted to a school, but they required a year in a household, a year of practical experience in a household. And they actually approved me doing this year in my aunt's household in the United States.
So the plan was you were to come here for a year and then go back.
Exactly. Yeah.
What happened?
Well, I came to the United States right after I graduated. I came by boat.
By boat?
Mm-hmm.
How long did that take?
9 days.
Oh my.
Yeah.
By yourself?
By myself. Mm-hmm. That was an experience.
I'm
yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Because I was only 16 and a half at the time. But I came by boat and left Cuxhaven in May of 1964 and then got to the United States.
Wow. When you got here, what happened? Where did you go
Well,
with your aunt, or?
Yeah. I came into the New York harbor, took a bus from New York to St. Louis. It was a 24-hour bus ride, and arrived here in the last part of May in 1964, and
Was that a
could not believe the humidity and the heat. I mean, I stepped out of that bus and it was like a wall hit me. I had never experienced that. Germany
Mhm.
was cool and cloudy most of the time.
Was that kind of a scary trip for a young girl by herself?
It was.
Yeah, I bet.
It was. But when I look back now, I think I should have been more scared than what I was. Because, youth, you kind of,
May have toughened you up a little bit.
yeah. But it was. I had a lady, well, a lady, she was a young woman that kind of took me under her wing, which
Mhm.
was good. She was about 25, Alicia's age now.
Ah, okay.
And she kind of shepherded me
I see.
through the whole trip, yeah. And that was good. I needed that.
So did you
But-
attend schools here in St. Louis, or?
I did. When I came, my aunt thought it would do me good for my language skills to attend maybe the last year of high school. Now, I had 6 years of English in Germany and 3 years of French, but I was lacking a lot of language skills. So we lived in St. Louis, near Eichelberger and Hampton,
Mm-hmm.
and Bishop DeBerg High School is right there. So I was in walking distance of that high school. I attended that. They gave me junior and senior English all at once, and
That's
speech.
a handful.
Speech, yeah, and that really made me learn a lot more
I see.
vocabulary. Yeah, and I graduated.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
Good. How did you first meet Terry?
Well, after I came, my aunt got sick. I was supposed to go back
Mm-hmm.
within a year. I would have never met Terry had that happened. But my aunt got sick. She had cancer of the pancreas and got worse very quickly and died. And she died the following year after I came in July. So I never did go back. I stayed with her through her illness and then with my uncle afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And then got a job, started working at Whitty Hardware, and worked with a lady there who knew the Yochums. Her daughter went to school with Kate,
I see.
and she worked in my department. It was the printing department, and she didn't drive. So I did drive my uncle's car here and there, and she needed a ride one day on a Friday. She had the big bouffant hairdo, the beehive up,
Yes.
and she wanted her hair retouched for an outing on Friday night. So I said, I'll take you to, Kay was doing her hair. I'll take you wherever you want to go. I'll wait for you, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'll drive you home. Well, that was my first meeting with Terry's mom and dad and Kay.
I
I
see.
met them before I met Terry.
Okay.
And
And how old were you when this happened?
I was 17 and a half. About 17 and a half.
Okay. And how long before you met Terry?
Well, his dad was telling Terry that he had met this German girl. And so Terry was, perked up his ears a little bit, but he really didn't want to meet anybody. He was like 3 weeks before starting chiropractic college, and he was not interested in having somebody in St.
Mhm.
Louis, and he was going to be in Chicago for 5 years. But he said, well, if
So this must have been some summer of 1967?
67, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. So he said, if you show me a picture of her and looks okay,
She passes the test?
Yeah, I may consider,
Mm-hmm.
meeting up with her. So they dressed me up and took a picture and showed it to him. And
Did you feel like you were in an audition?
Yeah, kind of. I had to, there must have been a test somewhere in there, right?
Gee,
Yeah.
that's
So-
like an online dating service before there was an online dating
Exactly,
service.
yeah, yep. So we met at this lady's house on a Wednesday night, and he took me to Cronlet Park to scout out a team that he was going to have to pitch against the next Sunday. And that was my first experience with baseball. I had never seen a baseball game, been to one, didn't know what it was.
Mhm.
And so he was explaining to me the rules, what the object of the game was.
In great detail, no doubt.
Right.
Well, obviously, you passed the test.
I I did.
How did Terry
Mhm.
do? What
I
was your
did.
first impression of him?
Well, he was very, he was very handsome. He was very clean cut. He smelled good. It was all, it, it was a nice package. And yeah, it was, I can't say it was love at first sight or anything, but it was certainly a pleasant experience.
Well, one of my questions was going to be, what was your first date? Would you consider this your first date?
Well,
Going to scout out a baseball team, or
you know,
did you eventually have a real date?
we did have a real date, yeah. I mean, that was our first outing, and so it'll always be the first meeting for us, but the following Saturday, he did take me out to, oh man, now I have to think about the
Well, that's okay.
Angelo's on the hill.
Oh, sure,
You
sure.
know,
Nice
the-
restaurant.
The Italian restaurant, yeah. And then we went to see a movie, To Serve With Love.
Good movie.
And we double dated, yeah. And it was a nice,
Do you remember who you double dated with?
Jean Combs. And,
Charmaine?
I'm not sure if it was Charmaine or not.
Hmm.
Could have been. Could have been Charmaine.
I don't know if they were dating or
And they got
married
married,
at that time.
yeah. Yeah. He wasn't married at that point, but yeah.
Well, how long did you take to think that he might be the one?
Oh gosh. It didn't take too long because he left to go to Chicago. And I mean, after we met, we had 3 weeks before he left, and we were out and together almost every day. And my uncle wasn't real happy about it. My uncle, we would be out in front of the house until 2 o'clock in the morning just talking. So there was a lot of conversation going on, finding out about each other. And when you do that, you know that something is
Yes.
interesting enough that you want to know more, and we did that. And my uncle didn't think it was so great. I spent too much time.
Yeah. I can understand your
Yeah.
uncle's feelings there.
Yeah. But then he left to go to college, and that was a first for him. I mean, he was coming all the way to Chicago, and he left one morning to drive up there, and we said our goodbyes, and who knows for how long we would be separated. Well, I came, I think it was a Friday. I came out of work that day, and there was Terry across the street. He had driven to Chicago, done what he needed to do, registering or whatever,
Mhm.
and drove right back for the weekend.
Oh, my. Well, that tells you something.
Yeah. That was nice.
Hmm. Well, now that you've had these intense 3 weeks with Terry, and you've been in the Yochum house, and
Yes.
you've met Mom and Dad and the
Mhm.
sister,
Mhm.
what were your impressions of the Yochum family?
Very warm and welcoming they were. Very interested in me. And, at first I thought Terry's dad was a dentist, because when I met him.
Really?
Yeah. I knew nothing about chiropractic. I didn't even know,
Mm-hmm.
I knew nothing about it. So he had on the lab coat, when I first met him, and I thought he was a dentist. But I find out he's in chiropractic and helping people, and Terry's mom and Kay, they were very, very welcoming to me.
Good.
I,
After a while, things become more serious.
mhm.
What did you see for your life to come after things started to get more serious? What did you see for yourself?
You mean, how did I imagine it to
Yeah,
be?
yeah.
Well, I knew Terry was going to be what his dad was. And it was, I would say, I felt that my life would drastically improve being connected to Terry, because I saw his dad was helping people. He was making a nice living. He had a nice house for his family. And as far as, what that would bring to my life, I had
How'd that work out for you?
positive. Beyond my imagination.
Good.
For sure.
Good. Well, at some point, things got so serious, you got married.
Yep.
When was that?
Well, we had our 5-year courtship, because when Terry started, he had 5 years of college ahead of him. And we got engaged 3 years after we met, had a 2-year engagement, and then got married on June 4th of 1972, right after he graduated.
I think I was there.
You were the best man. Yeah.
After
Yeah.
that, you went back to Chicago, didn't you?
We did.
How
Yeah.
was life for you at National Chiropractic College?
It was good. It was good. It was a good start for us. We had a very tiny apartment. Terry had a
I know I
Yes.
slept on the couch in it one time.
Yeah, just one bedroom. We now I lost my train of thought here. How was life
Life
yeah,
in
yeah.
National.
But Terry, with his being in residency, he made like $50 a week. I found a job in a printing company.
Hmm.
I made $75 a week, and we just lived with what we had, and it was a good time. He was studying hard and working hard.
Do you think your European upbringing in your childhood helped you survive on that little?
Go through that, yeah, yeah, definitely,
That's good.
yeah.
After your time in Chicago, you returned to St. Louis.
We did.
What was life like then?
Well, we came back, and Terry worked with his dad for a little bit. I didn't go to work. I worked in our home. We rented an apartment, and Terry started to read films for different doctors, and I typed the reports. So that was my job.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little bit isolating, because at the time we only had one car, and I was at home all the time
I see.
alone.
Yeah.
So maybe a little bit depressing at first, but he got me a little car
Oh,
to give
good.
me wheels.
Good.
Yeah. But
So how long were you in St. Louis after you came back from Chicago?
2 years, I think. 2 years before.
Well, tell me about the decision to go to Australia from your perspective.
Well, when Terry graduated, and this, I remember it really well, we were saying goodbye to one of his professors in the parking lot of National College, and this professor, Dr. Kleinhans, was starting a new school in Melbourne, Australia. So he was talking to Terry, and he says, in about a couple of years, I will need a radiologist. And Terry said, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
You can look for one. But it kind of perked my interest, because I said, hey, I have relatives in Melbourne, Australia. My godmother from Germany was there, and so he said, "Well, I'll give you a call." And sure enough, the call came, and he called Terry and said, come on down, and I need you to teach my students. Come for 2 years." And Terry says, "No way, I'm not going into the unknown for 2 years." He says, "Well, how about 6 months?" And that's what we did. Went for 6 months and stayed for 6 years.
So you were relatively for this move,
You know,
and
I was not against it. No, at first Terry thought he would go by himself,
mhm.
and then one of his uncles said, "Don't do that. Take her with." And
Now that's the first I've heard of this.
Yeah?
Tell me some more about that.
well, because it was such a long move, and we have furniture and we have an apartment, we thought it would be better to have me stay home,
Mhm.
keep down the home base, and have him go and come back. And when he went to, I think he was in Houston, one of Dad's brothers, he said, "That's not going to be good for your marriage. You need to take your wife with you." And so that's when we decided,
Smart move.
yeah, it was a very good advice.
How did you see this move going over in the Yochum household, senior Yochum?
It was not a great happiness there. I don't think Terry's dad or his mom, Terry's dad was more vocal about it, relished the thought of losing Terry to another continent, to
Mhm.
go that far away. I mean, all these, every move in your life has a consequence. And
Yes.
that one surely had a big one.
Mhm. Well, you said that 6 months turned into 6 years. How was the time there? What were you into, and how did things go?
Well, Terry just was working very hard because he came to a non-existing radiology department. He had to build it from the very, bottom up. But it was good that we had relatives there. My godmother, Francie, she took us in, and we lived with her for probably 6 months.
Mhm.
And it was quite a distance from the school. So we were in the car a lot, every day, back and forth. And I went with him because the school actually employed me to do some work in
Oh, that helped.
in the printing and
Mhm.
the skills that I had, I was able to use. So we would go out and have a lot of time together. It was good.
That's good.
Hmm.
Is that when the children started to come?
Not right away. Not right away. I mean, we got there in '79, I think, and we didn't have Kimberly till '80.
It's relatively
Yeah,
right
it
away.
is right away, kind of, isn't it? Yeah. Maybe it was '78
And
that
it
we
does
got
take a
there.
while for that.
Yeah, that process.
Yeah, the processes.
Yeah. Yeah, we had Kimberly. We weren't sure that we could have kids. So it was, we waited some time in our marriage to start a family, but then
Mhm.
when we decided to start a family, we had difficulties and were told that maybe we couldn't have kids at all. So we went on a vacation to New Zealand, and
Uh-huh. Relaxed a little bit,
no
huh?
TV, no telephone, just a little place to stay at with not much to do.
Your daughter's over there dying, you know that, don't you?
No. It's okay. She's an adult. She knows.
Well, you were married, I mean,
Yeah,
come
and we
on.
were married, yeah. So we, well, it was great because when we came back from New Zealand, um, shortly afterwards, we had visitors from New Zealand, and I was cooking breakfasts and everything, and I said to Terry, either I'm getting very sick or I'm pregnant, because
And what
in
was
the
the
morning-
reaction to that?
well, he says, let's check it out. So we had ultrasounds done, and sure enough.
What was Terry's reaction to finding out he was going to be a daddy?
Oh, he was happy. It was, yeah, that was a great happiness because, you know, we wanted children, and having, you know, had the verdict of maybe not
Mhm.
ever being able to have children, it was a great happiness for us,
Good.
yeah.
Well, how was life after Kimberly came along?
It's different when you have children. It changes your life, yeah. I remember the morning when we went to the hospital, we stepped out on the porch, and it was very early. It was Easter morning. I'm going to cry.
That's all right. Take your time.
And I said to Terry, somehow I think our life won't be the same after this trip. to
That was
the
an
hospital.
understatement.
Yeah. And it was. Oh, I need a tissue. So, thank you. Yeah, but it was good, you know. We had
Mhm.
our first little baby girl, and Terry was a good dad. He took her everywhere, and we had a lot of fun together.
Was Phil born there also, or?
Philip was also born there.
And
3 years later, yeah, in '83. But then we left. I mean, he was only 8 weeks old by the time we left Australia.
Leaving Australia, you were bound for St. Louis and got detoured to Denver, is that right?
Well, it was actually a plan to Denver because Terry had colleagues there. He went to school with Dr. Freuden, and on our trips back and forth, we would stop in Denver and thought it was a nice city, and he offered him a place in his practice, and so the plan was to come back to Denver, and that's when he started writing the book.
How did Terry's father feel about staying in Denver versus coming back to St. Louis?
St. Louis. Well, I'm not sure, but I think in the meantime, Terry had gotten Dr. Fasella to buy Dad's practice because Terry having gone into radiology, it was apparent that he wasn't going to go into a private practice and treating patients. You know, I don't think Terry's mom and dad were real happy to have us not come back to St. Louis. But Terry was going into the practice there, doing the radiology for them, and he had the book in front of him, which took a lot of his time.
Well, it seems like concentrating in the radiology area has allowed Terry to give back more to the profession than a private practice ever would have.
Yeah, and you know, Terry's dad, I think he guided him towards that anyway. So he kind of knew. Okay.
We talked a little bit about your return to Denver and how you got started there. Now that you've been there for quite a while, how's things changed for you since you arrived in Denver?
Well, dramatically, you know. We've been there for, well, since 83, 20, 30 years
Mm-hmm.
almost. And when we got there, of course, we had nothing. We moved from Australia with about 100 boxes, had no furniture or anything. We moved into a furnished home with our boxes. and and Terry started working right away with lectures that were very successful. But he also had a lot of time that he spent on writing the book. So he was inundated with work for sure.
And by the book, you mean the first edition of the Essentials of
right.
Skeletal Radiology,
Right.
the textbook.
The textbook, yeah. And we lived in that house for almost 3 years, and then we bought our first house, which we still have. We're still in the same house. And going from, you know, him making maybe, I don't know what it was, 12,000 a year or something in Australia, he's been quite successful, and we've had a nice life. We like Denver.
Well, and shortly after you came to Denver, you added a third.
Right, Alicia Marie. She was born in Denver, and
When?
September 5th of 1984. Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell me about all of your children, and tell me how they have impacted your life.
Well, starting with the oldest, Kimberly. She just turned 30 the other day, and she was about 3.5 when we moved to Denver. She had been healthy, developing okay, but about a year into living in Denver, I noticed there was something not quite right. Her color wasn't good, and she was just kind of quiet. So we had her checked out. Nothing came up positive. I thought maybe it was the change of climate, change in living conditions, whatever. But unfortunately, then several years later, when she started having headaches, migraine headaches, and they would last for too long, sometimes 2 days, we found out that she has a disease that is pretty debilitating. And so, of course, her sickness has impacted our life quite a bit. It's been hard because for many years she would have crisis situations.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a disease that was found in like 70, at the time, 70 people in the whole world had it. So there wasn't much research because of the rarity of it, and also not much treatment for it. So we had to be on our own with it, and except for the crisis mode that you go in when she had seizures and medical treatment was necessary for her to get over those times. We just started applying chiropractic care and nutrition, and when she was diagnosed, she was about 8.5, 9 years old, and we were told that her prognosis was not good, that we could lose her anytime within 5 years from that.
Well, it seems to have hung in there for a while.
She was 30.
Yeah. How do you think dealing with an illness in the family like that has affected Terry and his temperament?
Well, I know that it affected and still affects him dramatically, because he has helped so many people in his lifetime, and he's unable with this affliction to help his own daughter. I mean, yes, we can help her. Help is there, but to make it right, to cure it, that's been very hard for him.
I sense a deep frustration in Terry that this is something he cannot deal with, he cannot influence, he cannot fix.
Right.
And
It is. And, it's understandable, because he's been able to help so many people, and he can't help his own daughter get to a point where she can have a normal life. I mean, she lives, but her life has been impacted
yes.
to a very, very big degree. And that it's sad.
Tell me about the Yochum son.
Philip, well, he was born in Australia, and we came around the world with this baby. We stopped in Malaysia and in Italy and Germany, and he was just a little 8-week-old baby. He grew up to be a good man. He's married now, and has followed his passion in music and became a drummer, and I think he's doing well.
I understand he was a baseball player.
He was a baseball player, yes. He was a dancer with his sister, and yeah,
Now, was Philip left-handed?
Philip, he's ambidextrous.
Really?
Yes.
So he can throw a baseball left-handed.
Yes, he
Did-
can
did-
hit and.
Did that lead to some tension with Terry?
Yeah.
Because as we all know, he should have been left-handed.
Right. He was actually happy to see Philip, doing things left-handed as a child, and so he guided that into the baseball thing. Philip just had trouble with his control. He could throw, but he didn't have very good control
I
on the
see.
baseball.
I see.
And so Terry, I think, gave up, at some point on the idea of making him a left-handed pitcher, like what he wanted to be.
Did Terry support Philip's, I guess, avocation would be the right word, I think, to go into music and percussion?
He did. He wasn't always enthusiastic about it, I would say, but Terry supported it in a way that he allowed him to pursue it, which, you know, in a way stemmed from Terry's dad maybe thwarting him a little bit in his desire to play baseball. And so he let Philip do what he wanted to do and go after his passion.
Well, I think clearly that's being rewarded now.
Yeah.
It takes a while, but
Yeah, it does. It does. But Philip, I think, is he's found his way. He's doing what he wants to do. He's making a living at it, and he's happy doing it.
good.
And I think, you know, in life, if you can be happy what you're professionally doing, that makes a big difference.
Yes, it does. Tell me about Alicia.
Well, Alicia is our youngest. Alicia came quite by chance. Shortly after Philip was born, I got pregnant with Alicia, and it was a blessing. You don't always think that from the start, but she's a blessing. And she was born here in Denver. Not here, we're in St. Louis right now, but she was born in Denver, Colorado. And she's been a joy to raise, too.
How has her decision to enter the chiropractic study affected Terry?
Well, I think he was ecstatic when she made that decision. Yeah. He was very careful not to have him influence her in, you know, too much during the decision-making process. But when she was leaning towards it and made that decision, he was just so happy. And he still is. I mean, right now, you know, when he thinks of the future that she can have, that he can influence her future, that gives him great satisfaction. And he says he's just hoping that God gives him a few more years so he can see that through.
How do you think you have changed and have grown since you met Terry?
Oh gosh, a lot, I think. You know, I was very shy. I was very reserved. I probably, well, you know, in my years of growing up, I always felt kind of inferior because of my upbringing, you know, the poverty in my family. And so having met Terry and having been able to grow with him, it's just been an opportunity that I would have never imagined. Never imagined.
Well, Terry doesn't lead a normal 8 to 5, 5-day-a-week job life.
No.
How has it been for you to cope with that?
Well, you know, it's been I would like to think that it's been a mutual support system we've had. I've supported his endeavors by mostly by just letting him do it,
Mm-hmm.
because he is self-motivating, he is creative, he does these things, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you just kind of have to let him go and do it. In turn, he has given me the support that I needed to be able to cope with things. I've always had help with the kids growing up.
Mhm.
I've had my godmother came back with us from Australia, so I had that support for many years. When she would go back, we had au pair girls
Mhm.
coming from Germany. Some were relatives, some were strangers, but I always had some help so that my life was
You weren't just there alone dealing with
right,
things.
dealing with, because he
Mhm.
did a lot of traveling, and you know, there was a lot of
Mhm.
alone time with the
Yeah.
kids that I had.
How has Terry changed since you met him?
You know, Terry, he really hasn't changed that much. He's always been um, a person that had to have goals. He meets the goals, he finds new ones. Um, he's very competitive, he's still competitive. Um, I think the qualities that he has have um, have been there from the
Mhm.
start.
Okay.
He's always been very organized. Um, he's always been very anxious to be able to support his family from way
Mhm.
back, and he still feels that way.
Mhm.
That is, you know, a prime thing in his life, that
Yeah.
he can support us to the best of his ability. And he's still going strong. You know, he was kind of fleetingly thinking about retiring, but with Alicia going into chiropractic,
It's another
he's
goal.
still, yeah, he's still setting the goals. Hmm.
What should people know about Terry that they might not already know?
Well, um, Terry Terry would come across as, I mean, he's a type A personality. He comes across as a go-getter. Um, and he is. I mean, he is enthusiastic about what he does. He's passionate about what he does. Uh, there might there might be a few people that may not see him as a loving, warm person to a lot of people.
Mhm.
He not only his family, but he cares for people deeply.
Okay.
He um,
It almost seems like what you see is what you get,
well,
but there's more in
for
there.
sure, yeah. But yeah, he's he's very deeply um, concerned about people. He takes a lot of time. You know, sometimes people don't see that, but
Mhm.
he takes a lot of time um, just on a personal basis with patients
Mhm.
and um, and doctors who have problems. Um, and spends time with people that,
Mhm.
that never comes out on the open.
Right.
It's all on an everyday basis behind,
A lot going
the
on behind the scenes.
Yeah, right.
Well, in closing, I'll let you off the hook now. Is there anything you would like to add, something I have not asked you about, or something you'd like to bring up?
Hmm. Um, just that I, you know, I fell in love with him a long time ago. I'm still in love, very much. I appreciate his love for me, the patience he's had with me and with our kids, the provision that he's made for us, and his faithfulness to me. It's been a good life. He's changed my life in a way that I would have never imagined. Coming from where I came from, um, where it has led to all the different stops in our life, Australia, and coming back here, having our children. Um,
It's been a journey.
I could have never imagined, right,
Mhm.
to have a good life, despite, in every life you have turmoil and trouble, and I guess Kimberly's disease has been our little
Mhm.
cross to bear. But despite all that, it's been a really interesting, love-filled life for us.
And it goes on.
Yes.
Well, Inge,
It's
thank
not
you.
over yet.
No. Well, thank you
Yeah.
very much. I hope this wasn't too disturbing for you.
No, no.
You did good.